Okay, Lauren, tell us a little bit about GrowWise and who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. So I'm Lauren Valier. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of GrowWise. We're a SR&ED tax credit consulting firm helping entrepreneurs and their teams access SR&ED funding without the typical headaches. So we built an AI-driven platform that really focuses on saving the team's time and reducing that back and forth stress associated with SR&ED. All right, Rebecca, tell me a little bit more about Pivot Edge and about you.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. My name is Rebecca Hawman. I am the Director of Marketing and Operations here at Pivot Edge, and we are a marketing first approach to hiring. We help high growth teams attract and hire and retain top talent that's not only right for the job, but right for your organization. Can you first off remind us what SR&ED is, who it applies to, why should we be considering it for scaling, and kind of give us an overview of what that whole program is?
Yeah, for sure. So many founders get this confused. So, SR&ED is Canada's largest non dilutive funding program. So, it's a tax credit. That sounds a little scary. What it means is that it's a funding program that supports Canadian innovation. Canadian companies get a cash refund back to reimburse them for expenses in the previous fiscal year associated with innovation, problem solving, technical challenges. So it's typically for those technical employees like engineers, developers, but any business can apply, any Canadian company can apply. Typically, we see software companies, tech companies, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, but we have clients across all industries and across all sizes. And the funding program is really meant to support that problem solving and that technical innovation and help businesses fund those sort of challenges while keeping that work in Canada.
Oh, interesting. And when we look at SR&ED funding, is there kind of a right time to apply for it? Should businesses be aligning it with year end? Should they start January 1? What does that look like for a company that's maybe not really familiar with that timeline?
Yeah, for sure. So you actually apply to SR&ED with your business taxes at the end of your fiscal year. So a lot of companies have a December 31st year end, but your fiscal year end can be whenever. So at the end of your fiscal year, that's really when you start to get the documentation together and actually fill out the application. That's kind of where we come in as consultants. We help do that whole application process and we submit it to the CRA with your business tax filing at the end of the fiscal year. But SR&ED is really something that should be thought about throughout the whole year. It's really something that needs to be documented well throughout the whole year of what projects you're facing, what challenges you're facing. And so we talk to a lot of founders, before they're actually done their first fiscal year to implement those systems during the year to maximize the claim before the year ends. So you should kind of always be thinking about SR&ED, but it comes up most significantly at the end of your fiscal year.
It's like doing your own taxes and then all of a sudden remembering that you have to file them, and it's such a harder task if you don't do
Yeah.
it all throughout the
Yeah.
year. So
It's
that makes a lot
more
of
than
sense.
the turbo tax.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we're this whole series is really talking about aligning SR&ED goals and SR&ED maximizing your SR&ED claim with that plan to hire. How do you actually find those people that you need that are going to maximize that SR&ED claim? So how should leadership teams be thinking about SR&ED as part of their growth and hiring strategy? And kind of at what point when they're evaluating their needs should they be looking at SR&ED as a maximizer?
Yeah, for sure. So SR&ED really comes into play once you start paying your technical employees. So if you're at the stage, really early stage where you're not yet paying your employees, it's not yet useful because SR&ED's a reimbursement. So you have to have those expenses going out the door to be eligible. But once you're at the point where you're scaling and your team is growing and you're hiring technical employees, SR&ED should be really built into your hiring strategy so that you can think about how to maximize your SR&ED year round, not just at the end of the year. So you want to think about what employees are doing the more routine work, the more kind of standard operating procedures in software companies that might be like building a database or building UI, UX. It's not that those things aren't challenging, they just don't involve the experimentation iterations that's required for a SR&ED project. So have one employee do that sort of work. But if you're having another employee do more of the technical problem solving, facing the larger challenges like security or performance with your platform, those kind of larger challenges that require months of work, those projects are going to be eligible for SR&ED. So understanding that before you hire will allow you to really understand your cash flow of how much can you get back through SR&ED. Can you get that whole employee salary, eligible for SR&ED? So 2/3 of their salary would then be eligible to get reimbursed through SR&ED. Or is it half of that person, half of that person? So having a conversation with someone like myself as soon as possible will really allow you to understand what is and isn't shred eligible, and then build systems that can scale your business and create that documentation throughout the year to maximize your shred claim throughout the year. So using a shred as kind of a catalyst for growth as well. When you get your shred refund back, using that to then hire more employees, and then that can become kind of a repetitive cycle that will then kind of fund your growth for your business.
I mean, right away, my marketing brain turns on. I know we'll get deeper into what that, opportunity looks like as you're going to hire in this series. But this is such a fun opportunity for organizations to really craft that role specifically to maximize their shred claim. And I think a lot of organizations might be leaving money on the table because they're not, looking at a job posting with that lens. So it's kind of interesting that there's a strategy behind actually looking at a job and being able to document that and then maximizing that shred claim. That's interesting.
Yeah. If you build the systems from day one, your shred claim will be so much larger and you'll be much better off. So,
right. Yeah. Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, we see a lot as consultants of things that founders do and where they make decisions, but where are you seeing kind of the biggest missed opportunity when it comes to shred claim and maybe waiting until year end or not crafting the right job posting to attract the right person that's going to maximize that claim?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say two things there. One is that a lot of founders don't even know about shred. And that's just a huge missed opportunity because sometimes there's, these great teams doing innovative work and they've got the right people in the right roles and they're doing this shred eligible work and they don't even know about it. So knowing about shred is obviously step one.
Step one. That's fair.
The second thing that I see all the time is just not having enough data or evidence to be able to prove that certain employees spent their time on shred projects. You need to be able to show that the project qualifies for shred, so there was a technical challenge and there was testing and experimenting done. But you also need to be able to prove what employees spent their time on that. So that's actually where something like crafting the perfect job description and really bringing that in from the get-go can help substantiate their shred claims. So having a strong role identified where, those certain characteristics or certain traits or certain activities are actually identified in the job description, that can really set you up for shred kind of from day one. And then implementing some tools like tracking your projects and tracking the employees' time, that will give you more data. And I always say less data is less confidence is smaller shred claims. And the opposite is true. So the more information you collect and document throughout the year, the more confidence you'll have in your claim and the more confidence you'll have while applying with a large claim. So
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, companies, even when they meet with somebody like ourselves, they have a very, maybe vague shell of what that role needs to do. But if they maybe sat down as a leadership team, kind of to your point earlier about really defining what the goal of that role is within the organization may actually, benefit them in the long run. We know it's hard. It's time consumed on things that aren't moving the needle necessarily that day, but in the long run, working with somebody like yourselves actually helps it be a bigger claim at the end. So that's interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So just as a final takeaway for this episode 1, if a scaling company could take one action away from today after watching this video on how to prepare their shred strategy for growth, what should they focus on?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because we actually have a checklist that a team CEO, CTO can use anytime of what you should be thinking about throughout the year to maximize your shred claim. So we can check that. We can link that.
Perfect.
But I would say the biggest takeaway would be get your team aligned on shred. One problem we see all the time is that the C-suite will know about shred intimately. They're the ones who deal with the application. But the folks actually doing the work that's shred eligible often have very little understanding of the program and what they should be documenting and how they should be documenting and what should be recorded and what shouldn't. So actually, I would say you have a team meeting once a quarter, once every 6 months, and really just make sure everyone on the team is familiar with shred, familiar with what they should be documenting, and making sure that you do the same thing for new hires as well. As soon as they're on board, they should be knowing, what practices you have and what you should be required to document for SR&ED and what projects are SR&ED eligible and what aren't. So having that training and that education and that kind of company alignment on SR&ED will really make sure your claims are substantiated and they're strong. And like I said, more data and more evidence will create stronger and larger SR&ED claims. So yeah, just get your team aligned and build that culture of SR&ED.
Yeah, I love that. I think, we talk a lot about, as we go through this series, we'll talk a lot about, how to identify the right hire for, again, the technical requirements of the role, but you just touched on the culture piece of that. And SR&ED has a lot to do with that, right? When you're innovating and you're making these huge leaps within an industry, you need those people that are joining your team to believe in what you're doing and the mission and the vision of the company. And
Yeah.
if SR&ED is a big component of how you're going to get there, making sure that that person as they join is aligned across the board is really, really critical, I can imagine. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, we'll kind of keep diving into this throughout the series. So stay tuned for more episodes as we delve more into SR&ED, claiming and maximizing your SR&ED claims, as well as how it ties into hiring and your growth strategy as a whole.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.